Depending on what law shows that you have watched or movies you've watched or how closely you follow politics or current events, you may have heard the terms grand jury or indictment before. But what do those terms mean? What are they? That's what we're talking about on this week's video, so stick around and let's talk about it. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you've had an awesome week and are gearing up for another good weekend. This week, we're talking about grand juries and indictments. What are they? What do they mean? All that good stuff. Just like always, this is a super deep conversation that can span hours if we wanted to. So I'm just going to give you a really high level overview. Anytime somebody is charged with a felony offense, whether it's on the state level or the federal level, before that person can be charged, the government or the state has to get an indictment. What an indictment is a document, a piece of paper that formally charges you or somebody with a felony. In order to get that indictment, the case must be presented to a grand jury. A grand jury is just a group of normal citizens. You would respond to a grand jury notice just like you would any other jury duty notice. And if you're placed on a grand jury, your job is to hear the government talk about cases that they want to bring against individuals, and then you decide if there is sufficient probable cause to bring that case. So break it down further. What does that mean? Well, you may be familiar with the term beyond a reasonable doubt, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the burden of proof that the state has to reach or the government has to reach at trial. To convict somebody of a crime, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they are guilty. Well, the burden is much lower at the grand jury stage. They just have to prove that there is probable cause to believe that this individual committed this offense, right? So it's almost like more likely than not. It's actually even lower than more likely than not. If they can convince a grand jury that it is probable that this person committed this offense or that there is probable cause to believe that, then a grand jury will issue an indictment, which is basically nothing more than a green light for the government to pursue their case against that person. Now, that's important, right? Because the burden of proof is so low, because legally speaking, it is so easy for the government or the state to get an indictment against an individual. There's a saying in the defense world that they could indict a ham sandwich if they wanted to. Very easy to get an indictment. Because that is the case, it's important that the public remember and that citizens remember that the indictment itself is not proof of anything. It does not mean that that person has been proven guilty. It does not mean that that person has committed the felony offense of which they are accused, right? It is nothing more than a piece of paper that formally accuses them of some wrongdoing. It's what starts the process. It's what kicks off the process. It is in no way, shape, or form the end of the process. It is the starting line. The government or the state has a long way to go until they can get to that finish line, which is a conviction at trial. So the grand jury is what starts this process. Now, there are certain ways that defense lawyers can interject themselves into the grand jury process and potentially make a presentation to the grand jury to try and convince them not to indict their client. Those opportunities are not given in every instance. They are not something that is obligated to be given to defense lawyers, but it is something that routinely happens, especially on the state side. Federal side, not so much. On the state side, at least here in Texas, it is something that fairly regularly can happen. So it's important that if you have an idea that a criminal case is coming, for instance, if you've been arrested and you've been accused of committing a felony level offense, you know that at some point a grand jury is going to have to meet and issue an indictment. Talk to a defense lawyer early and often about, is it smart to put together a grand jury packet? Is it potentially winnable to put together a grand jury packet? Is that something that we can even do in this case? Because you don't want to miss that opportunity. So again, this is high level overview stuff. I could dive into a whole lot more detail. So if you have any questions about this or anything else, make sure to swing by the live stream on Sunday evenings at 7:45, and we can talk about this or any other issue that pops up that you want to talk about. And that's what that's for. So swing by. It's over on Twitch. As always, I'll put the link down in the video description. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you have an awesome next week. I look forward to seeing you guys next Friday. But until then, stay good and stay on the right side of the bars.